more than 7 minutes on Twitter so that you make short clips. Tinash, talk to us, Sister Abu. And thank you so much to all our viewers who are watching us live from across the globe. This is www.techmec.tv. And today we are so much excited to have Honorable Tendai Biti as our guest as we discuss on a lot of things. I think top amongst the issues we're going to be discussing is the issue of the High Court that they've been challenging. And also we're going to be speaking about Zimbabwean economy. And as we close up the show, I think we're also going to give him an opportunity to speak about the MDC ownership issues that have been pronounced by the Supreme Court. Honorable Tendai Biti, thank you so much for joining us and having us live right here.
Thank you.
Few minutes back, Honorable Biti, you were coming from the High Court, and it made a lot of pronouncement as far as your challenge is concerned. For the benefit of our viewers, if you can just please break it down to us.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon, compatriots and other viewers and listeners. As you know, the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights is the leading legal organization for human rights in Zimbabwe. And I'm privileged to be a founding member and one of the group of lawyers that are members of that fantastic organization. So this morning, starting at 10 o'clock, the High Court had 3 applications filed by the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights lawyers, all connected with the lockdown, all connected with COVID-19. The first application filed by my learned friend, Mr. Batasara, was an application brought by a woman called Lucy Masondo, who is a resident of Karoi, as well as the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights itself. And this application sought to ensure that the police and all law enforcement machinery in this country comply with the law as they enforce the lockdown regulations SI 83 of 2020 and SI 77 of 2020. There's been serious and gross human rights abuse by the police, by the military, and by municipal police. So in the case of Mrs. Masondo, for instance, she was assaulted while she was cooking sadza outside her house in Karoi. Then police unleashed dogs on her. There were videos produced by the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights that showed police in Mutare, for instance, confiscating produce and wares from vendors and selling them. There were instances as well where passengers, commuter passengers, were told to alight from a bus and thoroughly beaten up by the state. So I'm pleased to report that Justice Tagu and Justice Musakwa ruled in favor of the applicants and granted a provisional order. So with effect from today, the police have been ordered, and all law enforcement agents have been ordered to comply strictly with the law and to make sure that they don't abuse the rule of law, they don't beat up people. The second application, which was done by my friend, Mr. Andrew Makoni, of Mbidzo Mchadehama and Makoni, again through the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, was an application filed by the Zimbabwe Association for Doctors for Human Rights, ZADHR. And this application was basically an application by doctors demanding that they be provided with a number of things that are necessary for them to combat COVID. This includes PPEs, this includes sanitizers, this includes drugs, this includes the provision of isolation centers, this includes the provision of massive testing across the length and breadth of Zimbabwe. And I'm pleased to advise that the state consented to that application, and an order was given. This order is going to be so important because it will protect the frontline workers, the frontline respondents, doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers, office orderlies, cleaners, and so forth, who will have to have adequate personal protective equipment, sanitizers, and so forth. It will also oblige the government to establish isolation centers. As you know, we've had primarily one isolation center in Zimbabwe, which is Wilkins. Thorngrove, I think, is coming up, and other centers like Ekuselini. So this order obliges the government to set up isolation centers with equipment, in particular ventilators and respiratory equipment. It also obliges the government to carry out massive testing during COVID. So it's an extremely important order that was obtained today. The third application, which I was directly involved, was an application brought by two outstanding Zimbabweans, human rights activist Mfundo Mulilo and my friend Honorable Rusty Makam of Harare North, who argued that during this lockdown period, because people are not working, and in the context of a situation where 95% of the people are in informal employment, where 79% of our people are living in extreme poverty, it's important that the state provides safety nets in the form of food, in the form of water, in the form of money to people during the lockdown period, during the period of 3 months that that have been announced in Statutory Instrument 76 of 2020. The court reserved judgment in that matter, but we're very optimistic that the court will heed the call of the applicants and protect the right to life and the right to health codified in Section 48 and Section 76 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. So that's what happened in court today. Lawyers are trying to assert socio-economic rights, particularly in this very extreme, fragile and vulnerable people, where people's health, people's livelihoods, and people's existence and dignity is being threatened by things that we don't understand, in particular this virus.
Yeah. Honorable Biti, please, let me understand something. And mainly, I think this is what Zimbabweans need to know and understand fully. You are fighting for rights that are already enshrined in the Constitution. When a high court makes an order that the police should stop beating up people, and I need to understand, should we celebrate such a judgment? Is this not an already enshrined right? And why do you need to order the police or the army to stop beating up people when it's already known they shouldn't be doing that? Are we not supposed to be doing something better than that, than asking a high court to order them to do what they're already doing? And what if they don't do it because they've already not been doing it? How do you apply such? I need to understand this from a legal perspective on the outcome of such.
That's the purpose of the law. The purpose of the law is to ensure that there's compliance and there's the rule of law. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we have laws, including the Constitution, that say that the army should not attack people's rights, the police should not beat up people, it doesn't stop abuse of rights. And that's why it's so important to continuously assert those rights. But regrettably, it's not something that affects the state alone. There are laws that say don't cross a red traffic light, but the human being still does that. There are laws that say to husbands, don't beat up your wives. But wives, I can assure you, are being beaten up as I'm talking to you, right now. I hope not your wife.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's the purpose of the law. The purpose of the law is to ensure that there is compliance. And regrettably, in Zimbabwe, we've got a long history of abuse of law.
That's the question. What are we doing about non-compliance? Because the reason why you're going to the courts in the first place is not a realization of a new law. It's an issue of non-compliance. Now that we have noted there is non-compliance, we are going back to the court to pronounce compliance. How effective is this and how does this work for the benefit of Zimbabweans? We need to understand.
We as lawyers, we can only play our parts. And our part is to interpret the law and to seek to enforce that law. Sometimes our part is to create the law, and we've been doing that. But we can only play a one small important part, which is enforcement, creation, and making sure that people abide with the laws. But the citizen too must play its part. So in other countries, people have got a right to demonstrate, to petition, to ensure that there's compliance. But ultimately, particularly within the context of Zimbabwe, there has to be political change. There has to be political fights so that we have a state that is compliant. We have a state that protects human rights. We have a state that protects the constitution and constitutionalism. So it's an issue that everyone must play his or her role. And we as lawyers, and putting on this jacket as a lawyer, we can only play a small role, but a very important role. Without the law, there's nothing. Without justice, there's nothing. And that's why we'll go to those courts. Whatever they do, whatever judgment that they make, we'll keep on going to courts where they're the only arbiters that we know of. And they're the only arbiters that we can trust humanity to.
Do you think that Zimbabweans will stop being beaten up by the police and the army after today's victory in the pronouncement, should I say? What should we expect?
It's obviously abuse will not stop. But any policeman who wakes up and starts beating up a vendor or a commuter must know that the law is watching. They must also know that in terms of the new constitution, personal liability is visited upon you as the perpetrator. So if you are a policeman from support unit Chikurubi, if you are a soldier from King George VI barracks, if you are a CIO from Red Brick, 4th Street, Harare, and you abuse someone's rights, you must know that ultimately that person has got the right to sue you personally and to go for your goats, for your cows, for your house, for your car, and all your assets that you have, including your wife. So you're in trouble. So the law becomes a deterrent against bad behavior. And I've no doubt in my mind that the more we experience and people begin to understand the full meaning of the new constitution, there will be restraint and moderation, because there's personal liability visited against.
I love the way you interpret this in terms of personal liability. Honorable Biti, how was it before? Did we have a law that didn't have this issue of personal liability on such instances? How was the law interpreted before? Because we used to have a lot of this.
Look, we had a law that allowed you to sue the institution involved. So if you were beaten up by a soldier, you had the right to sue the army. Okay. The law did not prevent you from being sued as well. But what has happened in the 2013 constitution, the law specifically says you also are going to be sued in black and white. And the constitution is the supreme law of the land. So it's no longer a defense to say, but sue my employer. If you get paid damages by my employer, the army, the police, then you can't come after me. Okay. So it changes the scale. It changes the scale, and it should be a cause for deterrence. And we've seen some changes, particularly, in terms of the Criminal Procedure and Evidence Act, if someone is arrested he must be brought to court within 48 hours from the date of arrest. The Constitution specifically says that if you don't bring that person within 48 hours, you, the arresting detail, can also be sued personally. Now, in the past 12 months, you have seen a deliberate, overzealous desire by law enforcement agents to comply with that law.
Okay.
So the law and the Constitution is providing a deterrence.
Interesting. Honorable, let me take you back to one of the issues that you were personally representing today. Of great interest is the current lockdown and the COVID that we are having here in Zimbabwe. I need to understand, you were arguing on issue of safety nets and that Zimbabweans must be provided basics as far as this is concerned. Elaborate this. What were you really demanding? And if your order has been granted, what would need to be done?
Yeah, so we have a constitution that says all Zimbabweans have got a right to life. And we are saying that there can be a right to life without the provision of food, the provision of water, and the provision of shelter. So, in this lockdown, if we lock down people and stop them from going to work, stop them from earning livelihoods, and we do so for a minimum of 3 weeks and 3 months as provided for by Section 28 of the Civil Protection Act, we are basically killing them. Because these people have to fend for themselves. They have to sell tomatoes. They have to sell vegetables. And remember, 95% of our people are in the informal sector. So we were therefore saying that you are infringing the right to life if you lock down people, if you don't provide them with the right water, if you don't provide them with food, if you don't provide them with money to buy other necessities. That was the essence of this application. The Constitution in Section 76 also says there's a right to health. And we were saying, if you want me to be healthy, I accept that I have to be locked down. But if I'm locked down and you haven't given me food, it means I have to go out and start selling tomatoes, thereby exposing myself.
Who should
to
give
this
you food?
virus. The state.
Does the law clearly state that? What are the dynamics
That's the
there?
interpretation of that right now. So we're basically saying the Constitution can't give me a right to life, which is just the right to breathe. That Constitution, when it says I have a right to life, it must necessarily mean I have a right to eat. It must necessarily mean I have a right to drink water. It must necessarily mean I have a right to money, because I shall need to buy clothes. I shall need to buy electricity. So the right to life is an ecosystem of everything that facilitates the right to life. So if you lock me down, please ensure that I survive. That was the essence of today's application. Give me safety nets. Because I'm not a human being merely because I'm breathing. I'm only a human being because I can eat. I'm only a human being because there's a roof over my head. I'm only a human being because I've got a clean environment around me. It's an ecosystem of rights. This approach to human rights is one that has been accepted in India, for instance. In India, the right to life is not just the right to breathe. It's also the right to shelter. It's also the right to education. It's also the right to health. It's also the right to a clean environment. It's also the right to shelter. It's also the right to food.
How practical is this, the way you see it? Do you think the government is going to, if the order is granted, or I think the first one, do you think the High Court is going to order such a grant the way you see it? And if it does, how practical is this to implement?
Yeah, if you had been in court when we argue this matter, we carried the hand of the court and showed them what is happening in India, and also showed them what is happening in South Africa. Also showed them what is happening in the European Court of Human Rights and Justice. In South Africa, during the reign of and the tenure of President Mbeki, this issue of the right to health and the right to life we are talking about arose in a case that is called the Minister of Health versus the Treatment Action Group. In that action, as you know, President Mbeki resisted ARVs and nevirapine and so forth.
Yes.
So an NGO called the the Treatment Action Committee took the government to court and said the right to life must be protected by you, the government, rolling out nevirapine and a program of ARVs. The court accepted that. The court said the government has got a duty to protect lives and accepted that. So in Zimbabwe, we're not doing anything new. We are simply persuading the Zimbabwean courts to follow what has been happening in other jurisdictions. And that's what we were doing this morning and this afternoon. Follow what has happened in India. Follow what has happened in South Africa. Follow what has happened in Colombia and Latin America. Follow what has happened in federal Germany.
Allow me, Honorable Biti, to take you outside court and make you wear the jacket that you usually wear as a politician now. If you can respond to me as a politician, not as a lawyer, do you think that the ZANU-PF government has got such a capacity to follow the order? Do we have the money to make sure that every Zimbabwean is fed during this lockdown? I know they've spoken about this as well. Do you think they've got the capacity to do that?
Without a doubt, they do have the... And if you were in court, the Minister of Finance filed an affidavit. And in the affidavit, the Minister of Finance said, I'm already doing these things.
Okay.
Yeah. So our response is that the government must come up with regulations which are clear.
Okay.
The thing, if you don't have regulations, then there's abuse, then there's weaponization of food. Okay. If you go into the rural areas, food is distributed, but there's no legal instrument.
Yeah.
So that's why you and I know that members of the MDC are denied food. So in today's court application, we were saying to the government, come up with regulations which are clear and transparent to everyone. So my Ezra in Dotito, my Due in Ngai, my Ngube in Cholocho, my John in Chendambuya can know that this is the law. This is the law. This is where I stand. So the first basis of our order is that publish that law. But that law then creates rights and obligations. Everyone knows where one stands. The problem with food aid in the rural area, nobody knows where you stand because it's done at the discretion of the district administrator.
Who is partisan as well.
Who is partisan, who is part of the infrastructure of party-state conflation. You understand?
Yeah.
It's now hard politics. But as lawyers, we're simply saying, you, the government, you've already said you've got money. Remember, the Minister of Finance has announced this safety net. But publish a law. A law, how you are going to distribute to who?
Okay.
So the people who stay in Borodo shouldn't qualify. So the law must be very clear. So the person in Harare South, the person in Cowdrey Park, the person in Epworth can know that I qualify because of 1, 2, 3. Publish the law.
Honorable Biti, we are going to be taking a short, quick break so that we get into the other issues as far as this issue is concerned. To all our viewers who are watching us live, we are www.techmake.tv. We are live on Facebook, we are live on Twitter, we are also live on YouTube. So thank you so much to all those guys who have been watching us. In the next few seconds, we are taking a short break. We'll be right back after this message. Oh man, pray, they might do it. recent legal pronouncement that have been happening in the High Court challenge they've been making. Now we need to jump into the second segment of the show where we speak about where we are right now as a nation. Honorable Tendai Biti, Zimbabwe is currently on a lockdown. Legally, are you happy? As a legal person, are you happy with the way the law has been administered as far as this lockdown is concerned?
Yeah, on the law, we're not happy. And that's why as lawyers, we filed those three applications which were here today. Firstly, we are very disturbed by the overzealous role of state security agents. The assaults that we've seen, the torture that our people are being subjected to. So we are extremely unhappy about that. That's why we filed the court application, which my learned friend, Advocate Bamu, argued, and which thankfully the court granted to prevent abuse. Not that it will prevent abuse, but at least there's a court order. Mm-hmm. Number two, we are also not happy by the fact that there are no safety nets. So people are being locked down, but there's no food, there's no money. And this is, again, the issue that was filed today. Thirdly, we are not happy by the fact that there is no testing. The whole idea of a lockdown is to allow the disease to pan out because it takes 14 days from infection to it manifesting itself. Yeah. But during that period now, you must conduct mass testing. Mm-hmm. When you conduct mass testing, you study your curve. Your curve is the rise of infections, the rise of deaths, the decrease in infections, the decrease in deaths, and the decrease in hospital admissions. So at the beginning, you start off in a spike, then it plateaus, then it lowers down once you control your curve. The biggest challenge we are having with the authorities right now is that they're not carrying out tests. Less than 600 tests have been carried out to date. Now, when you are not carrying out tests, you are not able to study. You have no data. You are not able to study your curve. You are not able to establish the curve anyway. Mm-hmm. So if that is the case, there's no point in locking down people. If you are not conducting mass testing, there's no point in carrying out the testing, which is why we are so disappointed with the regime. We are so disappointed with the Minister Obadiah Moyo and the government. The lockdown has been a total waste of time because we have not been able to do the requisite things that drive and justify a lockdown.
Mm. Honorable Biti, while you are still there on the lockdown issue, I need to understand something. We all agree that we need about 14 days before the manifestation of this virus, right? My question is, if, for example, we have only done 600 Zimbabwean tests, right? If we've got maybe, let's say, 1,000 or 2,000 people infected, and then after 21 days, that's my worst fear, Honorable Biti, then we are allowed to go back into the streets. And some of us have been infected during this lockdown, and we did not get enough time, or we did not even get the opportunity to get tested. Are we not letting the dogs back into the streets? If we go back after 21 days, and we haven't been all tested, neither has there been any scientific way to demographically understand who could have been infected. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are very simple. If you are not gathering data, this thing is science. And regrettably, this regime has failed to surrender wisdom to the experts. In our view, the experts must be leading what we do or we don't do. In particular, people like Dr. Prosper Chonzi Kufakutani, people like Dr. Trusty Zaranyerika, Dr. Enoch Stolle, and many other distinguished doctors, they must be at the forefront. Regrettably, the regime has chosen to put politicians, illiterate politicians, some of whom think that coronavirus is a punishment from God to the West, which is really abuse and unacceptable. Let the data guide you. Let the data guide you. But the sad thing about Zimbabwe is that we are not collecting the data. We are not collecting the data. 600 tests doesn't allow you to make a scientific determination. It doesn't allow you to make a scientific determination.
Definitely.
Yeah. But what we will know after the 21 days, What we will know after the 21 days is that those who were sick at the beginning of the curve, i.e. from the 31st of March, the inflation would have broken out. With a test or without a test, it would have broken out. And remember, of the people that are infected, less than 4% die. Less than 4% die. In other words, the majority are able to fight this disease. But in the case of Zimbabwe, if there was infection, our mortality rate is likely to be high because of poverty, because of underlying conditions. There's a lot of hypertension, high blood pressure. There's a lot of our people with a diabetic. There's a lot of our people who are on ARV treatment. So things would have come out in the 21 days. But we don't.
How about new contractions? Maybe I spoke with a friend on the second week, and I got infected. Maybe I was closer to somebody in the second week, because I strongly feel that infection still could have gone on the second or the third week, and he was not tested, never had visible signs. And then I spoke with the same person, and maybe we had contact with the same person, and I got infected as well. There's this the ripple effect of such then, because there's going to be a domino effect or towards whosoever I'm going to be speaking with or to be contacting with, as far as this issue is concerned.
All you're saying is speculation. You're saying maybe.
Yeah.
We are saying, let's not speculate.
Exactly.
Let's test our people.
Definitely.
Let's test our people.
We received 20,000 kids, as far as Jack Ma is concerned. Why have you only tested 6,000? And what is your take? 600, sorry, 600. What is your take towards this? Because I'm saying the more people we should have tested by now, we would have a democratic.
There's a problem. There's a problem. This government is irresponsible. This government has not put a single cent of its own money towards COVID. It has not bought a single testing equipment. Not a single one. It has not bought a single ventilator. The work that has been done at Wilkins Hospital has been done by the Chinese. Now there are at least 4 ventilators. They hope to take them to 8. As I'm talking to you right now, Nazareth Infectious Center in Beatrice has got the capacity of opening up new 200 beds. It's a 3-story building. First floor, second floor, third floor. They are not able to use the second floor and the third floor because the lift is not working. To repair the lift, the government only requires, the city of Harare only requires US $70,000. So US $70,000 is denying us the use of an extra 200 beds at Nazareth Infectious Center in Beatrice.
Who administers Beatrice? Are these not council-run hospitals? Shouldn't the council be paying for this? Who runs these hospitals?
Yeah, it's council, but this is beyond the council, the city of Harare. Wilkins has now been designated as a national isolation center. Nazareth has been designated as a national isolation center. So the government of Zimbabwe should pay out. That's what all governments are doing. In the United States of America, the Congress has approved a package of $2.2 trillion. In the United Kingdom, a package of $600 billion. In Zimbabwe, we have put nothing. That's absolutely irresponsible and unacceptable.
Honorable Bit, let me just take you to developing news that broke today. The IMF is managed to help or assist 25 countries, the indebted countries across the globe, to fight COVID-19 and the coronavirus. And amongst the 25 countries that were announced today, Zimbabwe was not one of the countries benefiting from this generous move where the IMF is managed to issue funds. Your thoughts on this?
You reap what you sow. So if you steal elections, if you beat up people, if you spend money as if it grows on trees, if you print money, if you are corrupt, you reap what you sow. As you know, the IMF Article 4 report 83 of 80, came up on the 28th of March 2020. And it was a serious indictment against Zimbabwe. It spoke about ugly politics. It spoke about the refusal to reform. It spoke about corruption. That decisions in Zimbabwe are made from the bottom line. What is in it for me? So under those circumstances, it was always going to be very difficult for Zimbabwe to be allowed to access this relief fund. And it's such an indictment on Mr. Mnangagwa because of the 25 countries you spoke about. 20 countries are in Africa. And some of Africa's nasty bad boys are getting benefit. The Central African Republic is there. The Democratic Republic of Congo is there. A little country called Sao Tome and Principe is there. Cameroon and Paul Biya are there. So Malawi is there. So when you have bad people, and just hold on, when you have got bad people, and you are considered too bad to be tagged, you are really bad. Shame on Minister Mnangagwa. Shame on Mtuli Ngube. Shame on DJ Biscuit Obediah Moyo.
But there are other bad countries in the list, Honorable Biti. With all respect, why is Zimbabwe not benefiting from the relief fund? Are we the worst country in the world? There are other bad countries that you've already mentioned here. Why is Zimbabwe today was not announced on the list of countries that should fund? That should be funded.
We are really bad. Let me take Malawi.
Yeah.
Malawi had an election last year which was stolen. They used Tipex to steal that election. But you didn't hear that a day after the election, 8 people were shot in Blantyre. 8 people were shot in Lilongwe. Yet there were thousands of protesters, which we all saw. They were not shot. Malawi has had, protesters. But you didn't hear that they were raped. People were raped in January of 2019 in this country. In August of 2019, the MDC wanted to have demonstrations. They were blocked. In October, in the same August of 2019, people were abducted in this country. Youngsters like Makomborero Arzurishe. On the 13th of October 2019, a vendor, Hillary, was killed in police custody. So Zimbabwe is extreme. So Zimbabwe's exclusion from the list of countries that are going to benefit from IMF relief funds is a question of reaping what you sow. If you sow a whirlwind, you reap a storm. Emerson has sowed stealing elections, corruption. That's exactly what he's reaping.
Now, Honorable Biti, before we close this section on the COVID and the lockdown, I need to understand your thoughts. After 21 days, do you think that we need to extend, like South Africa has done, or we need to cut this short? What are your thoughts on this?
This is a personal opinion.
Yeah.
If you are not going to test people, there's no point of a lockdown. There's no point of a lockdown. If you are not going to give genuine safety nets, I'm the MP for Harare East. I've been in Mavuku, Tafara, Masasa, Zimfos, giving meal and meat to the constituents. There is no lockdown there. So the lockdown has become a class issue. It's in Borodale. It's in Mount Pleasant. In the wood, there's no lockdown. In Budiriro, in Mufakose, in Mavuku, in Tafara, in Eastview, in Caledonia Farm. So if you're not going to have a serious safety nets to allow people to feed and stay inside, and if you're not going to test, there's no point in the lockdown. There's no point at all in the lockdown. All you have to do is then to say to people, exercise social distancing. All you have to do is to give people masks and gloves and sanitizers. Without these two things, it's a waste of time. And this government has failed to do that.
Why are we not testing, Honorable Biti? Your understanding on this? Why we have got more than 20,000 from JECMA. I'm sure there are also the WHO has also donated. Many other organizations, they've donated many testers. And I know there are also some rapid testers. I can't remember the actual technical name for these.
The rapid tests.
Yes. Yeah. Why are we not mass testing?
It's a leadership issue. It's a leadership issue. Compare the leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa and that of Mr. Emerson Mnangagwa. There is a gap. One is a leader, one is a copier, Ramakopa. There's a gap, a huge gap. So compare the fantastic work that is being done by Dr. Willem Kize, South Africa's Minister of Health, and our esteemed Minister of Health, DJ Biscuit Obadiah Moyo. There's a gap, a huge gap. So Zimbabwe is suffering. Compare the teams, compare Willem Kize's teams. We have a team that is led by Vice President Kembo Mohadi, Vice President General Guvea Constantine Chiwenga, deputized by Opa Muchinguri, who believes that COVID is a punishment against white people. That's the disaster in this country. It's a crisis of leadership. I tweeted the other day that the biggest virus in Zimbabwe is not the coronavirus. It's a struggle of leadership, or more appropriately, lack of leadership.
How are we going to come out of this situation? COVID-19 is real, Honorable Biti. People are dying. We are losing brothers and sisters silently. And how will Zimbabwe look like?
The regime must defer to experts. I don't know, I'm just a poor lawyer, but I read. And in my wisdom or little thereof, let's defer to experts. Let's defer to Prosper Jones. Let's defer to Trust Zaranika. Let's defer to Enoch Stolo and the many, many competent doctors that are there. If we don't have experts, let's make an appeal to the Chinese themselves. They've gone through this. Let's ask for Chinese doctors in this country. Let's ask for doctors from the World Health Organization. We have got an African CDC based in Addis Ababa. Let's get help. But to think that you can treat COVID-19 by going to a nganga or a prophet, it doesn't work. I know that our colleagues in ZANU-PF, they are used to that. But this is science. This is science. Let's defer to the experts. Let's have data. And let the experts read that data. That data will tell us where we are on that curve. If we reach the plateau, if we conquered the curve,
do you agree with the figures officially?
No.
I think we have about 14, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't
do you agree with these figures?
There's a parallel health system. I'm aware, for instance, that tests have been carried out on cabinet ministers. I'm aware that there's a private institute run by Dr. Solangi that is carrying out the tests in the suburbs of Zimbabwe.
As a matter of fact?
As a matter of fact, yeah. As a matter of fact, and I'm aware of legal action, potential legal action against what that doctor is doing. So there's a parallel universe for the rich, and by the rich, substitute that with ZANU, the who is who of ZANU-PF. And given that it creates a problem, because all information and data must go into the national pool, so that Dr. Obadiah Moyo and the likes of Prosper Jones can interpret that. So I don't believe that our figures are authentic. I don't believe that we have 9 or 11 infections after the 3 in Bulawayo yesterday. I don't believe we've got 12 infections in Zimbabwe. I think there are much more than that, but they're being hidden. And I think that the elites in this country are going to private hospitals where they're being tested privately. I'm told, for instance, by doctors that when the test was done for cabinet ministers, some of them used pseudonyms. I don't know whether they use their Chubureka names to hide. So where you have got opaqueness, you have a problem. This disease can only be fought if the leadership carries everyone with it. That's why you see President Ramaphosa and Dr. Willem Kize doing briefings every day. That's why you see in the United Kingdom briefings every day. And the briefings in the United Kingdom, the government chief scientist is there, giving. In the United States of America, you see President Trump and his experts, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Briggs, giving and carrying the American public. We are not doing that. So the biggest disease, as I've said, we are suffering of is the disease of lack of leadership.
British Prime Minister Boris openly came out and they opened up to the world, confirming that he was COVID-19 positive. Why is it so hard for African leaders and MPs and ministers and governments to also openly come out and confess and confirm their condition? Why is this supposed to be a secret, and why are we having these parallel structures and parallel systems to test them? Why is it such a big deal in Africa?
It's a ZANU-PF issue because across the road in Botswana, the president accepted that he had the virus. He was quarantined after his visit to Namibia. And then a nurse came to treat them who was infected. The whole parliament and the cabinet are in quarantine as I'm talking to you. So this is just a ZANU-PF disease. The real issue for me as far as Prime Minister Boris Johnson is concerned is that he fell sick. He didn't go to a private hospital institution. He went to an NHS facility. He went to a public hospital and was treated by public workers in a hospital. In Zimbabwe, they'll go to China, they'll go to Hong Kong, they'll go to Singapore. So it's very unfair that ZANU-PF has destroyed our public health system and our public resilience. So people are suffering. Since independence, there's not been a brand new central hospital that has been built. The 4 central hospitals in the country, Harare Hospital, Parengatwa Hospital, Mpilo Hospital, UBS, they were all built before independence. And that's an indictment. That's a shame.
Mm-hmm. And this speaks a lot as far as our economy is concerned. Honorable Biti, we are going to jump into the Zimbabwean economy after this short break. To all of you who are watching us, this is www.techmec.tv. We are with Honorable Tendai Biti, who is also the Vice President of the MDC. We are going to be back.
MDC Alliance.
MDC Alliance. That is going to be the last issue we're going to be talking about today on our 4th segment, whether it's MDC or MDC Alliance, but the already has already preempted on that issue. But yeah, interestingly, we're going to go back to that issue in the next few seconds after this message. Okay. Do that input themselves. We are back. Thank you so much to all of you who have been watching through this show. We are www.techmec.tv. My name is Tonio, and it's always a pleasure to have you here. Today we have got Honorable Tendai Biti, who is the Vice President of the MDC Alliance. I've been reminded to say that. And also, interestingly, he was also the past finance minister during the JNU era. Honorable Biti, you are not a stranger to the financial issues of Zimbabwe. In your understanding, how would you describe our economy right now, and where do you see us probably in the next 5 years?
I think that the economy is shambolic. I think that it's a total dog's breakfast. I think that the economy has tanked. We are in the middle of a deep recession, which recession is fast tracking itself to an economic depression. I think that Mutuli Ngube has been a disaster, and an absolute disaster. Chinamasa was a real disaster, but Mutuli has made Chinamasa look like a genius, and that's a serious indictment. So we are led by people who don't care, people who don't have a soul, who don't have ideology, who don't have a compass. And most importantly, we are led by dishonest people, corrupt people, and dishonesty. So the economy is in a tailspin. It's a disaster. A complete dog's breakfast, but one which not many dogs would rush to try and eat anyway.
When I had an interview last time with Honorable Professor Mtuli, he said that what's happening right now is Zimbabwe is currently on a downfall, and we should expect the curve to then turn up after running through some of these ideas, under the transitional stabilization program that they're having. They're saying this was expected, this is expected according to their plan, and Zimbabwe will then shoot up after probably a year or two, and we're going to regain our position in the market value. What is your response to this? Because he's saying it's part of our transitional stabilization program.
Yeah, despite his impressive paper qualifications, with great respect to him, he actually knows nothing about economics. When you are dealing with an economy like Zimbabwe, what is your problem number one? Your problem number one is productivity, output. So you need the economy to operate on optimum capacities. So agriculture must be functioning. The manufacturing sector must be functioning. The tourism sector must be, functioning. The mining sector must be functioning. And you carry out measures that encourage productivity. You carry out measures that encourage growth of the economy. You carry out measures that encourage inclusivity in the economy. And you do this through fiscal and monetary instruments. Now, I want to revisit the things that he has done, which, as it were, have killed the golden goose. The first thing has been the total mismanagement of monetary policy and the foreign exchange regime in this country. It was a disaster to de-dollarize when conditions for de-dollarizing did not exist. It was a mistake for Minister Mtuli Ngube to enact SI 33 of 2019 and SI 142 of 2019. So the first thing he needs to do as a matter of urgency is to dollarize again, to bring back the US dollar, to remove the central bank's export surrender requirements, to stop the bank from printing money through quasi-fiscal activities. That's urgent. Because what he did when he did that was to force capital flight out of Zimbabwe, was to stop investment in the Zimbabwean economy. Because no one will come from China, from Australia, from Canada, from the United States of America to invest 300 million US dollars in a platinum mine only to get a currency or a return that is useless. The second thing that is so key in addressing productivity is to address the debt question. He has been in office for literally 3 years now. If you look the latest report from the from the IMF, the staff monitored report, Article 4 team, there has been no plan on how to resolve Zimbabwe's debt. At least Patrick Shinamasa had a plan. The Lima plan agreed in Lima, Peru, on the sidelines of the World Bank meeting on the 8th of October 2015. Minister Mtuli has no plan. Now, without a debt plan, there is no way you can access the huge amounts of money that are sitting in the IFIs, in particular the World Bank, in particular the African Development Bank, at the fund itself, and in other multilateral institutions. The third thing which has been a disaster under Minister Mtuli's administration, or more appropriately under Emerson Mnangagwa, has been corruption. I chair the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament. What I have seen there is unheard of. Command Agriculture alone has siphoned off $6 billion, dollars. You've got corruption in 5 key areas of the economy, what I call commanding heights of the economy. So the first portal of corruption is foreign currency. They go to the Reserve Bank and get foreign currency at 1:1, then they sell it at the black market at 1:50, 1:45, the current going rate. Number 2, the source of corruption, portal of corruption, is fuel. There are fuel cartels that are controlling this country. Trafigura is one of them. Secunda is another. Zuva is another. Who controls those cartels? We know them. So Secunda Republic has destroyed Zimbabwe. Number 3, a portal of corruption, command agriculture. I shan't even talk about that. Number 4, portal of corruption, commodities, diamonds, gold, platinum, chrome. They are stealing like there's no tomorrow in the commodities. Number 5, subsidies. Why should anyone give subsidies to fuel companies, but you're not giving subsidies to energy, for instance? Now, what happens is that the international community watches you stealing, and you are stealing US dollars. So they will say to you, why should we invest in your country? But more importantly, why should we give you money? That's why people like the IMF won't give Zimbabwe money, because they say, but if you're able to steal $6 billion, why should we give you money? The other day, the regime gave $2.7 billion. Only last week, $2.7 billion to command wheat. Now, anyone who knows one or two things about agriculture in Zimbabwe will know that even if you put billions in wheat, we can't produce more than 16,000 tons of wheat per year, which is less than 1 month supply of national requirement. We don't have the weather and the climate that is necessary to produce wheat. But why does Emerson give $2.7 to wheat? Is because it's going to be stolen. But that money could have been taken to combat COVID, to give the safety nets, the issue that we were talking about. So corruption is taking us nowhere. Then the actual management of the economy. I don't understand why this government is not embarking on cash budgeting. I used to call it "we eat what we kill." I don't understand why this government has not been quick to attend to structural reforms. Why do we need so many parastatals, GMPs, your cold storage commissions, and so forth? I don't understand why we're not attending to the ease of doing business. I don't understand why we're not attending to our infrastructure, gross capital formation. If you wake up someone who died in Zimbabwe in 1968, he won't get lost. Maybe Samora Machel will confuse him because it used to be called Jameson Avenue. Maybe Takawira Leopold will confuse him because it used to be called Moffat Street. Maybe Nelson Mandela Avenue will confuse him because it used to be called Baker Street. But there's been no gross capital formation. We're talking about hospitals a few minutes ago. There's been no new hospital built.
Allow me to push you on the spot there, Honorable Biti. If you were the government of the day today, what would you have done to make sure that Zimbabwe comes out of this? Because we're definitely in a ditch. We need to come out of this. What do you think could have been done?
So 10 very quick things. 10 very quick things. Number 1, and urgently, is to re-dollarize. Bring back the regime of multiple currency. Bring back the US dollar as a transition to joining the Rand Monetary Union.
While you're still there, why are we've been speaking about this, Honorable, and why are we delaying to do this? Even Honorable Mtulingwe, before you joined government, you used to support the same narrative. Why are we still stuck up there? What's the problem?
I've answered that question. Zimbabwe suffers from a kwashiorkor of leadership. It's leadership. I've answered that question.
Let's go back to the 10 other things. Yeah. Number 1, I'm clear.
So I would dollarize as a matter of agency. But bringing back the US dollar is only transition. We need to go to a cheap currency, which is the rand. The US dollar is overvalued. It's appreciating by the day, so it makes our exports more expensive. Okay. So let's go to a cheap, credible international currency, and the rand is that currency.
Honorable Biti,
Number
sorry,
2,
I'll hold you, then we'll go back again to that issue. While we are still there, I remember clearly when I did an interview back then with Prof. Ngube, he said that Zimbabwe right now, back then, Zimbabwe was actually much more valued than the rand. And he said that's not okay, that's not correct. Zimbabwe, the way our economy is, we cannot then have a much more powerful Zimbabwean dollar versus the rand. How do you see this, and should we use the rand? At what rate are we going to be rating that to the Zimbabwean dollar? And where do you see us right now? Should we have a much more powerful currency more than South Africa is?
The Zimbabwean economy is nowhere near the South African economy.
Yeah.
The South African economy is a $400 billion US dollar GDP economy. $400 billion US dollar GDP Zimbabwe, a very optimistic pro-ZANU projection will be $11 billion economy. So you can't say the currency of Zimbabwe is stronger than that of South Africa when you've got a weaker economy. But of course, he was talking in the context of a pegged dollar.
Yes, our pegged dollar was overvalued against the rand.
Yeah, but
how could that be possible if our economy,
if I dig a hole for you and put you down and say I'm taller than you because I've dug a hole, I'm not taller than you. So that's crazy. That's mad. Which is why I said at the beginning, Mutulu is making Chinamasa look like an angel, look like a star, but Chinamasa is not Lionel Messi. Chinamasa is a disaster.
Okay, let's do the other 8 points that we're talking about, Honorable.
Yeah, so number 2, I'll go back to macroeconomic stability. Yeah, macroeconomic stability. The government must live within its means. The Reserve Bank must stop printing money. If we manage our resources very well, we actually have a lot of money that is floating in this economy. Number 3, we don't need the central bank. We don't need the central bank. If you look, the central bank is at the epicenter of all the crises we have had. So I would embark on serious reform of the central bank. Number 4, wage sector reform. 85%, 90% of our wage bill is going towards cost workers. When I was Minister of Finance, I used to pay 238,000 workers. Now, Mutulu is paying around 600,000 workers. And most of those workers are in the villages doing work for ZANU-PF. So the wage bill needs to be reduced from 95% of total expenditure to at least 30% of total expenditure. From about 30-40% of GDP to 7-8% of GDP. Number 4, state-owned enterprises. There are too many of these state-owned enterprises which are just a vehicle for looting. Take the Grain Marketing Board, for instance. Take Zinara, for instance. Take Air Zimbabwe, for instance. Take the Cold Storage Commission, for instance. So the system needs to get rid of these instruments that were created for ZANU-PF to fund their campaigns during an election. Number 5, the debt question, which I've already spoken of. We need a debt plan. We used to have what is called the Zimbabwe Accelerated and Arrears Debt and Development Strategy. Because the reason why you need to deal with the debt is that unless you make good with the World Bank and the IMF and the African Development Bank, your risk profile remains high and you can't move. But we need development finance. So that is critical. Number 6 or 7, competitiveness. We need to address the ease of doing business in this country. It's a crime that we lawyers are now taking about 3-4 months before we register a transfer. It takes 3-4 weeks to register just a company in the company's office. So all those time limits need to be compelled. Competitiveness is key. And remember, we're competing with other sectors in the international community that also wants this. Number 7, the issue of growth capital formation. Zimbabwe has not had meaningful development in the last 40 years. So we need to boost our roads. We've got a road network of 88,000, less than 10% of it is paved. We need to deal with the railway. We need to deal with energy. We are producing less than 700 megawatts against installed capacity of 2,000 megawatts. We have to generate extra 2,000 megawatts. Patoka, the coal, the IPPs, the hydrocarbons in Manicaland, but we need to generate an extra 2,000 megawatts to support a growing industrial base, dams and irrigation. Our farming depends on rain. We need farming that depends on irrigation. That will require about $5 billion just in irrigation. So we need to attend to gross capital formation. And one of the things which we need to attend to is technology, ICTs. We are now in the era of 4th generation technology, blockchain technology. We need to be a society driven by data and knowledge. We are in the 13th century, so we have a problem with that. So gross capital formation is very key. Number 8 is agriculture. Agriculture will remain the mainstay of this economy until such time that we have industrialized. So we need to do 3 key things. Number 1, we need to give title to farmers, either in the form of securitable long leases or title deeds. In the party that I come from, we prefer title deeds. Once you give people title deeds, it allows them to seek financing from the banking sector. Before the land reform program, 74% of bank lending used to go to farms, used to go to agriculture. Now we destroyed the farm in title, security title, agriculture is gone. So we need to sort the issue of tenure. We also need to deal with the issue of maximum sizes of farms per region. It's a contradiction in terms that some people have got farms that are 600 hectares, some have got 20 acres. Let's have defined maximum sizes of farms per region to generate,
Did you have a farm, Honorable Biti?
No, I don't have a farm.
If you were to get one, would you? If you were to be offered one, would you?
I'll make a confession which not many people know. I grow pigs in the raw area, in Morewa. So in a way, I'm a small farmer, but I don't have a farm.
Okay.
I farm in a village. My father died in 2000.
Should the MDC or your party be in government? Do you think? Sorry, I know I'm number 8.
I think every Zimbabwean who qualifies has a right to benefit from the land reform program.
How would you want to see this being redressed? I'm asking while you're still there.
These are the points that I'm talking about. Let's deal with maximum sizes of farms per region. So some region, one can get away with 50 acres, 20 acres. In the south of the country, region 4, region 5, there's ranching. So the farms have to be big. Let's also have one household per farm. We've got multiple farm owners scattered across the country, including Mr. Mnangagwa himself. So that's the reform that I'm talking about. Number 4, let's deal with compensation. The Constitution says we must compensate people. Let's compensate actual owners of farm. In other words, as part of moving Zimbabwe's economy, we need to put a full stop on the land question. And it's so key. It's so key. Number 9, let's industrialize Zimbabwe. The biggest problem that Zimbabwe is facing right now is the accumulation model. So if you were to work Cecil John Rhodes today, you wouldn't get lost because Zimbabwean economy is still doing what it was doing when Cecil John Rhodes was alive. Mine to export to outside Zimbabwe. Do agriculture. Tobacco floors are opening in 2 weeks' time. We sell tobacco, 90% of it goes outside the country. We need to value add and beneficiate here in this country. So altering the accumulation model is so key. We need an industrialization policy. Lastly, is the social agenda. You cannot have economics when people are poor. The safety nets that we're talking about. So there has to be huge investment in education. All of us, I'm here because of education. If my parents didn't send me to school, and the government had not provided cheap education at Goromonza High School, I don't know what I would be, a thug probably. So education is so key. We need to invest in education. We need to invest in hospitals. We need to invest in people living with disabilities and so forth. Safety nets. So those 10 things can push the country forward. We need a disruptive, transformative agenda on the economy, something which is beyond our colleagues and compatriots in ZANU-PF. Certainly not Mr. Mtuli Simuwe, certainly not Mr. Emerson Mnangagwa, certainly not Mr. Obadiah Moyo.
Honorable Biti, let me take you back to a debate that has been raging as far as the economy is concerned. Some people, it was a comparison between Honorable Tendai Biti and Honorable as far as the finance is concerned. Some say that you wasted the US dollar. You allowed Zimbabweans to buy bread and matchstick and other basics using the US dollar. Hence, you're probably one of the worst finance ministers to handle the US dollar. And you are responsible for the disappearance of the US dollar. How do you respond to
where
this?
does that money come from? In 2000, when I became finance minister, in February 2009, the entire stock of US dollars in the country was less than $50 million. By the end of February 2009, there was $1.8 billion. By the time I left as finance minister in September of 2013, there was 6.5 billion US dollars cash sitting at the Reserve Bank. That's why you could go to an ATM and get the money. So I didn't waste US dollars. I created US dollars.
Interesting. What happened to 6.5 billion since then? Because I
Uh,
understand there was a moment where we got to almost lowest levels ever. What happened to this Nostro account coffers in Zimbabwe?
the government started spending what it didn't have. So they embarked on an expansionary fiscal policy in which they were spending but not creating the money. Particularly Command Agriculture. Command Agriculture took a lot of US dollars out of the system. Then when they realized that they no longer had the money, that's when they introduced the RTGS payment system. That's when eventually they introduced bond notes on the 4th of May 2016. That's why eventually they then told us that the money that you had was not US dollars. So an expansionary fiscal policy killed this. They basically stole our US dollars and they replaced that with a surrogate currency called the RTGS dollar. So at first they told us the two were the same.
Yeah.
They put adverts, your goat and our sheep are the same. Passed the laws, only to come back in October of 2018 to say, hang on a minute, separate goats and sheep, open Nostro FCAs and Nostro RTGS. Then in February 2019, last year, they said, no, we are lying to you. We're lying to you. Those things were never the same. Your goats and our sheep are not the same. They are 2.5, but we'll liberalize. By June of 2019, they told us we're lying to you without apology. The sheep and goats are never the same thing.
But why
This
are you not
government-
challenging this as lawyers? I thought
We are
I
doing
heard
that.
rumor. Yes, I thought, yeah, that's what I just said. And what has been the outcome towards this? Because when most people had banked money, they had banked at the value of 1:1.
The Law Society has filed a court application on on that point. I was privileged to give them an opinion in which I said this was an unfair expropriation in breach of Section 71 of the Constitution. Activist Mfundo Mulilo has also brought an application to challenge SI 33 and SI 142. Honorable Amauswa has also brought an application. The other citizens, Richard and Penny Biti, who had their money at cabs and woke up one morning to be told, US dollars, to be told that it was bond. So there's going to be many litigation. But if a government robs its citizens, in particular robs its pensioners, that government is a criminal government. And regrettably, we have a criminal government running us.
I'll take you back, Honorable Biti, back in time. There was a time when you had an altercation with Honorable Mtuli Ngwe. I'm sure it was during a parliamentary portfolio hearing, whereby he actually blamed you for funding some of these government quasi businesses that you are attacking. I'm sure it was around Command Agriculture, if I'm not mistaken.
No. Muturi accused me of abandoning monetary policy. And of course, the whole idea of dollarizing is to avoid the Reserve Bank, it's to avoid monetary policy. An economy can be run without monetary policy. This country can do without a central bank. If effectively during my time I didn't have a central bank, we used to bank our money at CBZ. So effectively my governor was John Mangundla, because he was the chief executive of CBZ, and we ran an economy, a decent economy.
He was doing well back then. What happened? Now he's the governor. How do you see him?
He's a good man, but that is a difficult job. It's a difficult job because unless you've got the moral sternum to say to the politicians, no, you can't do that job. And if you go along with the politicians, you won't be able to do that job. You need moral sternum. So when they say print the money, you should say no. But you can't be a governor who says when they say print money, you say, I'll print double what you want. Then you've got a problem.
All right, let me take you back to the day of day-to-day in Parliament. You as parliamentarians, you stand for us. We voted for you. Be it ZANU-PF or MDC. I need to understand two issues, specifically from the MDC perspective, outside the economical issues. Honorable Biti, why is it that we are not seeing the MDC debating heavily, especially on issues of number one, diaspora and vote, number two, making sure that the government or parliament aligns law to the constitution? We only get to hear some of these issues when we are almost close to election. diaspora vote, electoral reform, media reform, and some of these critical reforms. Why are we not hearing these now so that there's enough time for everyone to tackle them? Specifically, I think for me, I'm more pained by the diasporan vote. If you can speak about the diasporan vote, why are you so silent about this? It only comes when you're close to election and other electoral reforms, so to say.
Yeah, part of the challenge with our parliament is that there is no coverage. We don't have the public broadcaster covering parliament and its committees. And that's a challenge. In other countries, in places like South Africa, there's a dedicated 24-hour parliamentary channel that covers, committees work. We appreciate the work that you guys in the media are doing. Your station, TechMake, Open Party, we really appreciate what they're doing. But you guys tend to like the high sounding things.
The headlines that
the
sell.
headlines. Yeah, you don't. You see, in the committee work, a lot of work is done, but it's laborious. It's not exciting. It's not exciting, and most committees are not covered. My committee, Public Accounts Committee, gets covered because once in a while we bring big thieves, so people come and see, the big thieves. So a lot of work is being done on the issues you have spoken about, and I hope you can bring here Honorable Gonese. He will tell you that the Justice Committee is in fact working on a draft bill on electoral reforms. And one of the things that we have done from the party led by Advocate Jacob Mafume is to have our own principles. You saw us launching them with President Chamisa 3 months ago at SAPES with Dr. Ibo Mandazi. And one of the things, of course, we are demanding is the issue of the diaspora vote, which is allowed and permitted by the Constitution in Section 67 of the Constitution. Then other comprehensive reforms arising out of the reports of the observers of the last election. So a lot is happening that doesn't get covered. One of the things which we have done, which is so exciting, is our fights around children's rights, women's rights, the fight to seek the abolishment of capital punishment. All those things, I haven't seen a line being devoted to them by the media, mainstream or otherwise. But it's important work that the MDC caucus is working on. The MDC caucus is driven by a matrix called DEPART. So we defend, we attack, we propose, we protect, we attack, we reform, we transform. So if you see our members in parliament, it has been depart.
So where are we with areas like the diaspora vote? If we may understand, and is this a key issue to you, the way we feel it is?
There's a bill that is being debated in the Justice Committee, which is why I would love you to bring Honorable Gonese here, and also Honorable Kutsazapulu as our constitutional parliamentary secretary in parliament. They will update you on what is happening. But we have produced the principles which were launched by President Chamisa, and those principles are through our deployees in parliament being used to proffer our reform for our electoral reform agenda in the Justice Committee.
And of course, to all those viewers who are watching us live, this is www.techmake.tv. We do appreciate all the time you have. We are now getting into the last segment with Honorable Tendai Biti. We've been discussing on a lot of things, but right now we're taking a short break. We will join you back in the next few seconds. Tendai Biti, who was the MDC Alliance Vice President. We're talking on a array of things. I think since this show started, it's been a very interesting engagement. Now we are on the last segment where we want to discuss what has been happening in Zimbabwe in the past week. Honorable Tendai Biti, last week, Supreme Court made a judgment and they ordered the MDCT, to be more specific, to reconvene and go back to the last status quo. Your understanding and your interpretation of this Supreme Court judgment.
Yeah, look, as I said immediately after the court hearing, the MDC Alliance was not a party to the proceedings before the court. We were neither an appellant nor a respondent in court. We are MDC Alliance. We are not MDCT, nor are we MDC. We are MDC Alliance, led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa. The judgment is being broadly misinterpreted by a number of people who ought to know better. I've seen the comments made by Mr. Komichi and the statement that he read immediately after the judgment. I shall not go into the politics of how he knew the outcome of that judgment to come with a lengthy prepared speech. I just want to deal with the legal issues in respect of that judgment. If you read the judgment concludes that the discussion about the future is moot. Moot means something has become academic. But the judgment then says, for real politics, we are going to go further. If you look at the decision of, at the definition of real politic is a decision that is not made on the basis of any objective reasoning. It's based on practical reality. I don't know what practical reality justified the judgment going beyond the conclusion that it was moot. But here's the challenge now. The judgment made purportedly in conformity with the rule of law, in fact breaks the rule of law. In fact, breaches constitutionalism. And I want to illustrate this by making 5 points. The first one is that the judgment conflates the MDCT with the MDC Alliance. The two organizations are not the same. So that's crime number one. Crime number two, the judgment recognizes that a congress took place of the MDCT led by Thokozani Kupe in April of 2018. So one of the unintended consequences of that judgment is to set aside the Congress of the MDCT in April 2018. But you can't do that. You cannot do that because that was a separate juridical process. Comrade Mao was elected Secretary General, Mr. Nikadzino. Comrade Obed Gutu was elected Vice President of that political outfit. So you can't change that. It happened. It's juridical. Number three, you can't ignore the formation of the MDC Alliance. The MDC Alliance was formed out of a loose coalition of 7 political parties. Now you know that in terms of the law, you can't register, in terms of the Electoral Act, you can't register 7 political parties. You have to register 1 political party. And we registered 1 political party known as the MDC Alliance with 1 symbol, with 1 logo.
So was the MDC then recently formed, or it has always been there?
It was formed in 2018.
So we can safely say the MDC Alliance is a new party with no relation to the past MDC that we have.
There's a relationship because the actors are the same. So the relationship is there. That's why we'll celebrate 20 years of existence. The relationship is there. But the legal entity, a universitas at law, a body capable of being sued or not sued, was created in 2018 when we went to register at the Zimbabwe Election Commission, a party known as the...
So would you say you're 20 years old or you're 2 years old?
I'll come there. Let me deal with the real issues.
Okay.
So a board was created with an emblem, with a logo, with a name called MDC Alliance, with candidates, 210 candidates across the length and breadth of Zimbabwe, and a presidential candidate called Nelson Chamisa. At the same time, another party called the MDCT registered in that election, led by Thokozani Kupe, which populated MPs across the length and breadth of the country. The judgment can't ignore that. The judgment can't undo that. As I'm talking to you right now, the party called the MDC Alliance has got over 120 MPs in parliament. The party called the MDCT has got 2 members of parliament. In fact, one of the ironies is that the party called the MDCT is suing the MDC Alliance in court right now on the basis that some of the proportional seats you got in Bulawayo belong to us. You have stolen our MP. The MDCT is suing the MDC Alliance. The court can't ignore that. Okay. The court also can't ignore the fact that this MDC Alliance then went to a Congress and elected leadership after a process of integration. Number 5, the court can't ignore the fundamental point. The essence of the court judgment is that the party called the MDCT must hold an extraordinary Congress to elect the person who will see out the term of Mr. Tsvangirai as president. Now here's the problem. The term of office of Mr. Tsvangirai ended in October of 2018 because the last Congress was held in October of 2014. Mr. Komichi, who calls himself the chairperson, was elected as chairperson or deputy chairperson to be more precise in October of 2014. His term of office has expired. Ms. Thokozani Kupe, who is described in the judgment as the acting president, her term of office expired in October of 2014. So the net effect of the judgment is that it is now rewriting the constitution of the MDCT in saying you can have your term of office way beyond 5 years, but a court of law can't do that. But this judgment goes beyond that. It resurrects Mr. Morgan Tsvangirai. It's a Lazarus judgment. Why do I say so? The constitution that was interpreted by the court says within 1 year after the death of Mr. Tsvangirai, this Congress must be held to elect the leader who will see out his term. Now, our founding leader died and passed on the 14th of February 2018. Therefore, the 1 year in which to hold this Congress expired on the 14th of February 2019. The judgment says the Congress must be called by Thokozani Kupe in 3 months or by Morgan Komichi in 4 months. 4 months from the date of that judgment, from the 30th of March, gets you to the 30th of July 2020. But if the Congress has to be held in July 2020, it means that construction can only be made if Mr. Tsvangirai died on the 30th of July 2019. So the judgment is therefore resurrected Comrade Tsvangirai from the 14th of February 2018 to the 30th of July 2019. You can't do that. How do you resurrect a person? Mm-hmm. So the judgment has got unintended constitutional outcomes which are unconstitutional.
Do you get worried, Honorable Biti? Let me just throw you back. I'll come back to this point quickly. Do you get worried about the day and the manner in which this pronouncement was made? Do you get worried? Are there any issues there that probably may make you raise any red flags as far as the date and the way the pronouncement was done, and more importantly, on how it is now apparent that the
Look,
coup.
I don't want to disrespect the Supreme Court and Justice Patel. I'm a lawyer, so I will not go into why the COVID regulations that will be breached. Other people have spoken on that. I'm just speaking as a lawyer on the unintended unconstitutional outcomes of this judgment.
But was that an urgent matter to be heard during the COVID lockdown?
In my opinion, no.
Does that make you curious, Honorable Biti?
Yeah, I'm very curious, yeah. That's why I said so soon after the judgment, I said that, look, we are MDCT. We had our, MDC Alliance. We had our Congress in May of 2019. Our next Congress is May of 2024. If we, you see, one of the judgments that everyone keeps on talking about is the judgment in the matter of Kudakwashe Basket Chuma. I have the privilege of acting for Kudakwashe Basket Chuma. And contrary to what many people don't know, that matter was actually heard by the Constitutional Court, not the Supreme Court.
Okay.
The Chief Justice, and may his soul rest in peace, Godfrey Chijausiku, chaired that bench. The current Chief Justice was part of that team. They told Kudakwashe Basket two fundamental things in their judgment in dismissing Kudakwashe's Basket. The first one that they told Basket was that Basket, you have got a duty and an obligation to exhaust internal remedies. I argued on behalf of Kudakwashe Basket that, but my lord, and first before Justice Bund, but my lord, it doesn't make sense. Kudakwashe Basket was ejected and expelled from ZANU-PF by the Politburo. It doesn't make sense to appeal to the Central Committee, which is chaired by the same chairperson, President Mugabe, in which the same members of the Politburo are also members. The court said, no, it doesn't matter. Internal remedies are an effective remedy. But the thing that they said to me and to Basket, relying on a case called Leslie Patterson versus Winterton Homes and Hill. Leslie Patterson was a young lawyer, my age group, so we were compatriots. She worked at the Winterton Homes and Hill, but she had such a fallout with her partners. Started fighting with all her bosses. And then she brought an action to say, I need to be reinstated. And the court said, yes, Miss Patterson, you have got rights, but your relationship is broken down. So in the context of Basket, the Chief Justice said, Mr. Basket, this is a voluntary organization. This is a voluntary organization. It doesn't matter whether these people have used the wrong procedures or not, ZANU-PF. The fact of the matter is that they don't like you. Who are we where we can see such irretrievable broken down in the relationship?
Yeah.
Who are we to try and patch that relationship?
The right to associate.
The right to associate,
Yeah.
which is codified in Section 58 of our Constitution. So in this matter, it's a very simple issue. Those of us who regard Advocate Nelson Chamisa as our president, who are proud members of the MDC Alliance, will associate with Mr. Chamisa and the big family of the MDC Alliance. Those who believe Ms. Cooper is the leader of the MDCT, call it whatever you want in Zimbabwe, you go with Mrs. Cooper. Those who think Douglas Monsora and Morgan Komicho are the alternative in Zimbabwe, you go with Morgan Komicho, you go with Douglas Monsora.
Is it Komicho?
Komicho. So it's a very simple issue. It's not for the court to determine. I am an Anglican. My president, Advocate Nelson Chamisa, belongs to the AFM. Many members of our party belong to the Catholic Church. We choose. So with politics, we choose. Those of us who have chosen the MDC Alliance, led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa, allow us to exercise our right
How the
in terms of Section 58 and Section 67 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. It's a simple game.
Yeah,
It's a
Honorable
simple
Biti,
game.
this has gone beyond the stage where where you are only supposed to choose freely and willfully. It has now been brought before a court of law. You are a lawyer. You respect the courts.
Yes.
And the court of law is forced your organization to go back in time.
No.
As
No.
law-abiding citizens,
No.
how do you interpret
No,
this?
it hasn't done that. The MDC Alliance was not party of those proceedings. So we can't comply with an order which we were never part of. The MDC Alliance is not part of that judgment. The MDC Alliance is not part of that judgment. So we can't be bound. We can't be bound by a judgment which we are not part of. And in saying so, this is not disrespecting the courts. If you look at the names of the on that judgment, it's the MDCT. We are not MDCT. We are an association of men and women who met under a tree at a stadium called Ascot on 3 cold and chilly days in Gweru between the 24th of May 2019 and Monday the 28th of May 2019. We chose our leaders, Advocate Nelson Chamisa as president, Lynette Karenyi Kore, vice president, Welshman Mube, professor, vice president, Tendai Biti Dotito, vice president, Tabita Kumalo Skoko, chairperson, Job Wiwa Scala, vice chairman, David Coulthard, treasurer general, Charlton Wende Mofu, secretary general. That's the party I belong to. Proudly.
Honorable Biti, you have dealt with many legal battles and political battles, whereby it's very difficult to create a line between the politics and the legal warfare in Zimbabwe. Don't you think that ZANU-PF would probably want and is going to use this same court pronouncement against you as a political party? Does that worry you at all? And what is the ways that they could want to try and do?
There are people out there. Millions of people are watching this live broadcast. There are people out there who know the real story behind all this, the real politics. And those people have watched it happen to their party for so many years. We were there when they brought treason charges against Morgan Tsvangirai in 1994. We were there when the leaders of our movement were beaten up and left for dead on March 11 in Highfield, Machipisa police station. So we have taken body blows on the chin. We have always managed to dust ourselves up, look the beast in the eye, and not blink. Because the people of Zimbabwe have faith in the MDC Alliance, have faith in Advocate Nelson Chamisa, have faith in the leadership that was elected in Gweru in May of 2019. These shenanigans, they will come, they will pass, they will go. But they are always there. And they will always be there until the people of Zimbabwe successfully manage to achieve a power transfer in Zimbabwe. We have won elections, we won 2018. What we have failed to date is power transfer. And that's what we are fighting.
Do you have, I know you have responded indirectly to this question. Allow me to ask it one more time again. Do you have trust and confidence in the court system in Zimbabwe?
Yes, yes. We'll keep on going there. We have trust and confidence.
Do you regret appealing in this court issue?
No, not at all. You see, if you look the judgment of the High Court came in May of 2019. There was a real danger. There was a real confusion whether we could in fact hold that Congress. So an appeal was the correct thing to do. An appeal was the correct thing to do.
You were appealing as who when you're not cited? Since this was an MDCT thing then.
Yeah, look, there were officials of the MDC who appealed. Morgan Committee signed the affidavit, the opposing affidavit. Morgan Committee appealed. Morgan Committee appealed in the Supreme Court. At our instance, we instructed him to do so.
Okay.
We instructed him to do so because we didn't want any ambiguity about the Congress of May 2019. So that decision was correct. But this judgment has now come. We look at it. We are a separate organization. We are MDC Alliance. We have MPs. We are being sued, and when you look at the election petition judgment, Nelson Chamisa versus Emerson Mnangagwa, the judgment is clear. Nelson Chamisa, who stood as leader and on the ticket of the MDC Alliance. So there can never be any ambiguity. If you go to parliament right now, there are two major political parties, ZANU-PF and the MDC Alliance. The third little small party with people there is the MDCT led by Thokozani Kupe. And then you've got one independent. My friend, the good MP for Blackman, the MP for Kwekwe Central, who stood on the National Patriotic Front ticket led by Joyce Mujuru. Those are the four entities in party. So it's a contradiction in terms that the president of one party, the MDCT, now wants to be the president of another party, the MDC Alliance. Only in Zimbabwe would you have such a dog's breakfast, a big dog's breakfast, if I might say so myself.
Honorable Biti, before we close this segment, the next segment we're going to be opening up calls so that we speak to Zimbabweans who are watching right now. What do you think could have happened to Biti, to Honorable Komichi and Honorable Ngonzora? What do you think could have driven them, in your own analysis, to have such a situation and circumstance? I just need to understand, as fellow colleagues, what do you think could have happened to them?
I have no idea. I'm not a psychologist or a psychoanalyst, but all I can tell you is that Honorable Monzora is a very clever person. But sometimes being too clever is dangerous. So I think he's suffering from the intoxication and the exuberance of his own too educated, if you like. Comrade Komichi is a wonderful comrade. But I think the comrades did not recover from the bruising election of May 2019. These were senior comrades. They didn't understand and appreciate the transition from being top of the mountain and to being an ordinary monkey in the field. So maybe we have to pray for them. But what I do know is that their comrades, I can't comment any further.
Honorable Tendai today, I was hoping I would not laugh all the way through, but you got me on that one. www.techmake.tv. Thank you so much, all the guys who are watching us. We are live with Honorable Biti, who is also the MDC Alliance Vice President. We are taking a short break and we'll be back to close this show. To all those guys who have been watching with us, we thank you. We do appreciate your time. Now we are opening up and giving you an opportunity to speak with Honorable Biti in the next few seconds before we call it a wrap. And thank you so much to all of you as well watching us live. This is the last segment where we're opening up our calls and allow Zimbabweans to also converse with us. We are with Honorable Tendai Biti, and we are taking up calls. Going straight to our calls, we do have a caller already who has been on standby. Caller, thank you so much for taking your time to join us. May I please hear whom you are and where you are calling us from?
Hello, my name is Jamanda. I'm calling from UK.
Shamanda.
Mr. Jamwanda.
Good afternoon, Honorable Biti.
Good afternoon, Comrade Jamanda.
Okay, I want to say I'm right behind you, Honorable Biti. We will not be shaken. We know who is the real opposition. They can play all these games, but we know where the opposition is. But I've got two questions, Honorable Biti, which I want you to address for the avoidance of confusion. The first question is, can you talk through this alliance agreement which you guys signed with the Honorable President was still there? What did he say? When was the alliance registered in the party? And what were the conditions after the election? And where we stood to guide that? That's number one. Then number two is I want to move away from this, Mozora and the Mobe thing. Please don't help me. We want to sponsor the party activities. We want to mobilize resources to find new
Please, if
members.
you kindly increase your volume, we can hardly hear you. Would you increase your volume? We can hardly hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, if you may try and always increase your volume so that we do not struggle to hear you.
Okay. We want the party to have an online membership after platform so that we can mobilize people to sign up as members of MCC Alliance. That's my question.
Thank you. Yeah. So on the first question, the first question is what does the MDC Alliance Agreement say, and how does it come into the play? So two things. The first one is that the original agreement was a loose coalition of 7 political parties. That on paper tried to maintain distinction. So it even had provision that says we contest individually as individual parties, which is not possible. So two things that are relevant. The first one, and I've heard Mr. Monzora say that the agreement said that whoever was the leader of the MDCT would then become the automatic leader of the alliance. That's not correct. That's not correct. The agreement says the leader shall be someone from the MDC. But I want to say, as a matter of fact, at the end of February 2018, in the 5th floor boardroom at Harvest House, the alliance principals, 7 alliance principals, actually chose and elected Advocate Nelson Chamisa to be the president of the alliance. That's number one. Number two, the Electoral Act does not allow multiplicity of parties to contest under one banner. Hakuna zvakadaro izvo. So mukwanise kuti muti muri mubatanidzwa wemachechi anocontesta mune mazita enyu. So all of us lost our identity, including the MDCT. All of us lost our identity. We then went in as MDC Alliance with a logo which was different from the MDCT, different from MDC led by Professor Watchman, different from PDP, which I led, different from Zimfest led by General Mtambara, different from Transform Zimbabwe led by Jacob different from Zanundoga, different from the Christian Democrats of Zimbabwe. 7 political parties.
Okay, while we are still there, Honorable Biti, I'll pose a question, but before I pose my next question, we'll check in this caller, and then we just need to hear what the caller has got, then I'll come back to my question. Caller, thank you so much for calling. This is www.techmake.tv.
Hi, how are you?
We are doing well. Say, if you may kindly introduce yourself. To whom are we speaking with? And where are you calling us from?
My name is Kichawana Muronzi. I'm phoning from England.
Mr. Mronzi, you may go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, Magasimba eri Honorable Biti.
Ndakasimba Seguru. Are you related to Ivan Mronzi?
Yeah, we are related. Yeah.
Muri Seguru Gora, muri Seguru.
Aiwa, tinotenda. Anditi tinokusapota tiri kuEngland ya. Chandanga ndangoti ndibvunze Honorable Biti ndechekuti what surprised me ma Honorable Chua vamunzora and committee. Pakaitwa judgment ku Supreme Court handere. Inise kuona kwangu vanhu vakanga vasina kutengwa kana kuti vaifanira vakadzoka kuhead office ka votaura nevakuru vavo ndo judgment. But what surprised me, vakomiti vakabva vamira vachiverenga nhingi vakanga vanyora statement handiti, but without telling their superior the outcome. So what worries me kuti yakanga yapreparewa rini nhingi yacho na statement yavakaverenga kuHigh Court. It shows kwatiro isusu semasupporters kuti izvo chaunoziva kana wanga watumwa nevakuru kunorepresenta vakuru, you come back with the response. But vakabva vatora judgment nhingi yavo vava-announce pamberi papublic without telling the boss the outcome. So it shows to us this suspicious. And we support you, but our comrades are sick.
Thank you, Seguru. Thank you, Gora.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I would say this is a compromised caller who has become your relative. So, yeah, of course, that was.
But he was maybe a compromise.
The caller was compromised due to your relationship that you have with them. But Honorable Bit, let me just jump to ask you an issue that Honorable Monzora mentioned while he was here on Sidu. He said that MDC Alliance, when we came together, there were party members that were supposed to maintain their parties, and some of them, he personally mentioned you, and he said PDP is still a political party that is in existence, and you actually have maintained your party, and you are not part of the fixed alliance. So how do you respond to this?
No. You know, I said Comrade Monzora is traumatized, and that remark is reflective of trauma. You see, what happened was that on the 9th of June, 2017, Baba Changirai called me to his house and said, Tendai, Manangu, ngati dzoserei chinhu chedu pachanga chiri in 1999. Then tikataura zvakawanda. Ndikaenda inini kumba kwangu ndikatoudza mudzimai yangu kuti murume andaona andataura naye hongu achiri pano panyama, but maziso ake atokuona zvinhu zviri kumberi murume. So ina I'm going back to the MDC party, but I know kuti zvichakoza trouble kupati kwangu. But vakasaramba kunditeerera, if it means kuti ndichaenda ndiri one, ndichaenda ndiri one zveshuwa. Zveshuwawo pandakaenda kuPDP vakaramba kuramba achada kundidoma mazita. Pandakaenda kustadium musi wa5 August, President Tsvangiraisi penultimate rally yakaitwa ku Zimbabwe grounds ichishandisa alliance agreement, kwakatoita hondo yekuti wasainirei. By the time yandakazoenda kuBulawayo musi wa9 September, the last public rally yavatsvangirai, PDP yanga yatotsemuka, isu vaida kudzokera back, tatodzokera. Ini ndakaita meeting navatsvangirai 3-2. The following Tuesday takazoita meeting tavatatu, vatsvangirai, van'ube neni. Ina ndiri kurudyi kwavo, Professor Walshman Ncube vari ku left. Vakatibata maoko so. lakati ngatidzoserei chinhu chedu cha1999. So by the time we got to the election of 2019, PDP had ceased to exist. We had become absorbed in the alliance. That's why so soon after the election, we then went through a process of integration. Ndosaka muri kuyeuka imi kuti ndisanda vice president we-alliance. Ndandiri vice chairperson. I was vice chairperson to Tabita Kumalo. I only became vice president at Congress. I wasn't vice chairperson of the PDP. I was vice chairperson of the MDC alliance.
I'll need to take a caller, Honorable Biti. We have a caller that has been holding on for the past 1 minute. Caller, thank you so much for calling TechMake.tv. Caller, you can go ahead with your contribution, please. If we may know who you are and where you are calling us from before you make a question and your contribution.
Hello, sir?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
It is dropped.
Please go ahead with the contribution.
I think it has dropped. Let me answer the first question.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. No, I was saying, why is it so difficult for Advocate Nelson Chamisa to follow his...
You are now faint. If you can just maintain your volume level, we could hear you now. We can't hear you. Hello, caller.
I think he was saying, why is it so difficult for Advocate Chamisa to follow the judgment?
Okay, why is it difficult for... yes, I'm sure that's the question. Yeah. We'll pick another caller once more. Yes, that was your question, correct?
Yes, why is it so difficult for Advocate Nelson Chamisa? We know there is something wrong with his ascendance to power. If you guys, you are a real alternative to administering this.
I'm sure he heard your question. We'll pick up another caller, then we'll just give him more questions so that he answers that he wants. We are having too many callers now, but thank you for the call. Caller, thank you so much for your time. Please go ahead with your contribution.
All right, thank you. Masora Biti. Vabiti ndine contribution yandiri kungoitawo.
Taurai, comrade, starring.
Zita renyu yemurikufona muri kupi?
Zita rangu ndiri kufona ndiri kuno Maharare ndonzi Muza.
Makadiva Muza.
Ndiri pangu makadiwa ishe wangu.
Mushe.
Good. Ndine zvandakangoobservawo zvakumuko Biti nezuro zvandandiri kungofunga kuti you just need to guard against this. Nekuti mai ava vanonzi kupi ava, she is after the destruction of MDC alliance. Nezuro, as I was doing my shopping, I met Madam Kupe, one of big supermarket here pa Avondale pa my shops. She was shopping. She bought grocery that was worth 6,000, but she paid with hard cash bond notes, brand new crispy ones. Nyangi, I see the value of the grocery, but the amount that she has spent paying cash, she's up to my bank $300. She bought grocery worth 6,000. Ndakatarisa ndikabvunza mufana akanga ari mumushopu kuti is this normal? Because this is not the first time. Last week she paid even 8,000. So Amaya, she is capable of buying voters. She is capable of, she can throw MDCA in the dustbin. You need to be very, very careful. Amaya vane cash, and cash vari kuiwana kupi ndo mubvunzo wakabvunza munhu wese akanga ari mushopu. We all got worried because this was 8,000, 5,000 cash crispy bond notes. Where is she getting? Kana mwana wachindi vari kuwana 300. Number one. Number two, tiri kuti ndiye ari kuzviti achazoda kuita mutungamiri uyu. Anogoita semutungamiri kana asingagone kuteedza mutemo ari kumboiwana kupi cash. Is she a cash baron? So you also need to be very, very careful namaya. Vanokurigirai pasi. Someone is financing them, giving her money. Yekuti she can destroy, she wants to destroy MDCA. That's my contribution.
sure that was a contribution there coming through from a caller. I know we've got many callers that have been trying to call us from UK and US, but Honorable Biti is no longer in time, so I'm sure this is going to be probably one of our last callers. Caller, thank you so much for taking your time. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I would rather remain anonymous, and I'm calling from the United States. I would like to affirm with Biti that we thank him so much for putting it out, the difference between the MDC Alliance and the MDCT. I think if those entities are separate, and then there should be no worries at all. And I'm just calling in to thank Mr. Biti for assuring us that those two, they actually is very different.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you for the call. All right. So to all our callers, we do thank you so much for taking this time to do call us through. But we are now way beyond our time. We've managed to take Mr. Biti hostage. He's been with us for way above our agreed time. Honorable Biti, we do not take this for granted. And to our viewers, unfortunately, we can no longer take your callers. But to those lucky callers who will do this each and every time, as and when Zimbabwe has got hot issues to discuss. But we are at www.techmec.tv. We've been having Honorable Biti. We spoke on an array of things: Zimbabwean politics, the court judgment, high court judgment that you were leading today, the coronavirus issues, and also his assertion of the Supreme Court pronouncement, the Supreme Court ruling that was recently pronounced, and of course Zimbabwean economic status. Honorable Biti, parting shots before we call it a quit today. I know it's been a long day.
Yeah, no, I think that I think to the viewers, people must just have faith in our movement, have faith in our leader, Advocate Nelson Chamisa. We hear the cries of our people. We are not disalive to the suffering of our people. We'll continue fighting, as I've said before, in the courts, in water, in the air, in the moon, in the sun. We will not betray this struggle. All we are asking for is just the change, it's just transformation, it's just jobs, it's just decent housing, decent wages. And that's not too much to ask. We are run by probably the worst government in the history of governments. But I know that we'll get there. If the people of Zimbabwe removed the baobab that was Robert Mugabe, they will remove the thorn tree legally and constitutionally that Emerson Mnangagwa is.
Honorable Tendai Biti there, speaking with us live from our TechMec.tv studio. We do appreciate it. We do thank you so much once more again. My name is Tonio. It's a wrap from us and the crew behind the scene. We do fully appreciate you guys taking your time. We are back again live. Please do remember to subscribe and get notifications the next time we go live. Honorable Biti, we are looking forward to having you one more time again. I'm sure we'll have Honorable Coupe so that she defends some of your sessions. And I think I'll be more excited to have also some other heavyweights, specifically Honorable Mtuli, so that we speak more on our economy and where we are going as a nation. If that is well with you, I'm sure we're going to be driving towards such so that Zimbabweans get to engage on such issues. But we do appreciate. Thank you so much for having us live right here. We appreciate it. And to our guests, it is a goodbye from us. We'll see you soon.